So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking some money from all of the tariff money that we've taken, and we're going to distribute it to our farmers until the tariffs kick into their benefit, which ultimately the farmers are going to be making a fortune.
New this morning, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins says the U.S. farming economy is, quote, in a significant challenge as farmers struggle with the impact tariffs are having on their livelihood. Over the weekend, Senate Majority Leader John Thune said farmers will need a bailout this year.
Chinese companies have stopped purchasing U.S. agricultural products. That was China's Commerce Ministry, MOFCOM, on camera in August 2019, carried by CNBC and confirmed in Wire reports. MOFCOM spokesperson Gao Feng stated, "China has made it clear that we firmly oppose escalating the trade war and stand ready to address issues through calm negotiations and cooperation." The statement came just days before new U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods were set to take effect on September 1, 2019. After months of tit-for-tat tariffs, the U.S. and China signed the Phase 1 trade deal in January 2020. Under President Biden, between 2021-2024, tensions eased slightly, but strategic competition intensified. Both countries pursued supply chain diversification, reducing reliance on each other. When Trump returned to office in January 2025, he reignited the trade war. In September 2025, the threat returned in hard numbers. China imported no U.S. soybeans for the first time since 2018, the Washington Post reported, citing customs data. A Reuters dispatch the same week framed it as a 0 month that landed squarely in America's harvest window. Listen to this farmer's testimony.
I mean, we produce 40% more agricultural products in this country than we can consume domestically. For the first time in 20 years, China's bought 0 soybeans and 0 new crop corn out of this country. If we got 100% of the soybean business, Katie, for every country in the world except for Brazil and Argentina, we would still only have half the soybean business that China is. If we got 100% of everything else, we would still only have half the Chinese business.
For farm country, the timing was surgical. Purdue University's Commercial Ag Center calculated that from January through August 2025, the United States shipped only 218 million bushels of soybeans to China, about 29% of U.S. exports for that period, and effectively none in June, July, or August, setting up September's blank slate. The American Farm Bureau added that overall U.S. agricultural exports to China were on track to fall to about $17 billion in 2025, roughly 30% below the prior year. This is hitting U.S. farmers really hard. Take a listen.
They took almost 40% of our soybeans 8 years ago, and now they take 0.
The tariff revenue is running about, on average in the last couple months, about $30 billion a month.
But Beijing filled the gap in weeks. Reuters reported Brazil on pace for a record export year, more than 102 million tons by October, with China taking about 93% of Brazil's September shipments and roughly 80% year-to-date. When Argentina temporarily suspended grain export taxes in late September, Reuters said Chinese buyers immediately booked at least 10 Panamax loads and later expanded toward 20 cargoes, sidelining U.S. beans during their prime marketing season. China's speed wasn't accidental. USDA's transportation guides detail how COFCO, the state-linked agribusiness, added terminal capacity at Brazil's Port of Santos, with new facilities expected to move around 8 million tons of grains and products in 2025. This was part of a longer corridor build-out that reduces switching costs away from U.S. Gulf flows. Reuters has tracked that expansion, noting how added berth space and rail access hardwire South American supply into China's crushers. The political shock is immediate in the Midwest. Bins fill, basis widens, and cash bids soften when your biggest buyer steps away at harvest. Farm groups acknowledge federal aid may cushion balance sheets, but they argue it cannot replace durable market access. We heard Donald Trump say tariff revenues would be used to support farmers until the tariffs kick into their benefit. And in late September 2025, he again vowed to distribute tariff money as interim relief, according to MarketWatch, Politico, and Wire coverage. Listen to White House's NECDIR. Hassett affirm it on Squawk Box.
The tariff money is going to be useful for helping us find the funds that we need to help farmers. We've had numerous meetings over the last week or two about exactly what we're going to do to help the farmers, but we're taking big measures, and those big measures are going to be public really, really soon. And yes, so for sure, China has, especially for soybean farmers, has stopped buying U.S. soybeans. Right now, the silos are full, and there are soybeans sitting on the ground with tarps over them. That's unacceptable to the president. We're calling up all our soybean customers around the world as part of our trade negotiations, and we're also getting ready to have really strong policies to support our farmers.
Producers' refrain remains consistent. They prefer trade to aid. Take a listen.
Well, it's a perfect storm of high cost and low commodity prices, and we already in a difficult farm economy, and then the trade war started, and that's taken things from bad to worse. And now our biggest export customer, China, has not purchased any soybeans from this year's crop, and that equates to about 25% of the whole American soybean crop this year. And we desperately need that market, and unfortunately, we're in a standoff right now.
The squeeze is actually not confined to soy. In October 2025, Reuters reported that China expanded export controls on rare earths, adding new elements to its control list and tightening technology licensing, steps timed ahead of a Trump-Xi meeting. Goldman Sachs told Reuters that China accounts for roughly 69% of global rare earth mining, a percent of refining, and 98% of magnet output, which explains why seemingly small regulatory moves in Beijing ripple through EV motors, chips, and defense supply chains. Automakers rushed to stockpile before a November 8 licensing deadline, Reuters added. The broader context clarifies why this lever hurts and why China can pull it. First, the demand shock hits when U.S. farmers most need liquidity, post-harvest through winter, when elevator space and cash flow matter. Purdue's timeline shows the summer fade in shipments and the September zero. Farm Bureau's export outlook translates that into tighter farm finances and fewer forward sales. Second, Brazil and Argentina can now backstop China's demand at scale. Reuters and Brazilian exporter group ANSE data show record throughput, with Chinese buyers dominating Brazilian loadings. Third, physical infrastructure, ports, rail, and terminals has been financed to make this reroute cheap and fast, USDA's port briefs indicate. For U.S. viewers, two realities follow. 1. Price pressure at the farm gate tends to show up as weaker basis and heavier storage burdens when export lanes close, even if futures don't collapse. That is why producer groups press for market access restorations, not just checks. 2. Once big buyers rewire supply lines, commercial contracts, freight lanes, crush schedules, winning back share takes time and trust. That is the lesson of 2018 to 19 and the reason 2025 feels more acute. South American capacity is bigger, faster, and more connected than it was in the last round. This is according to USDA logistics snapshots and wire analyses. Policy choices now matter on both sides. Washington can seek targeted, rules-based access that locks in predictable volumes and sanitary rules, or attempt to offset lost sales with domestic support while hoping alternative buyers appear. Beijing will keep exploiting its option value, shift soy where it's cheapest and least politically costly, tighten rare earth licensing when leverage is useful, and keep investing in ports that make future pivots easier. The Washington Post framed September's zero month as a pressure tactic ahead of leader-level talks. Reuters' rare earths timeline shows the same logic in critical minerals. The story is not that 1 month ended a trading relationship. It is that a single month of zero can expose how dependent U.S. farm income is on one buyer, how rapidly China can redesign its import map when politics demand it, and how leverage now travels beyond crops into the metals and magnets that power a modern economy. If the question is who blinked, the better question is who built alternatives. On soy and rare earths, the evidence shows China has. But let's hope for good news, as Trump and Xi Jinping are scheduled to meet on October 31st, November 1st at the APEC summit in South Korea. If you liked this analysis, like, subscribe, and share for others to also reap the benefits of basic trade knowledge.